Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Liz Young. I'm the Senior Development Manager at RE-volve. And really just thank you so much for taking the time out to join us to learn more about RE-volve and how we can help communities go solar. So while we're waiting for folks to trickle in, we're going to put up a quick poll just to find out who's on the call today. So yeah, go ahead and fill out this poll. You should be seeing it now. Awesome. Looks like folks are doing the poll. And again, for those of you just joining us, we're just doing a quick poll to see who's on the call today, and we'll get started in just a second. Awesome. It looks like the voting is kind of slowing down. So let's go ahead and check out the results of the poll. So it looks like we've got a good mix of folks on the call today. A lot of representatives of nonprofits, some solar installers, college students and volunteers, and then some mixed clean energy advocates and renewable energy professionals, and some mystery folks as well. So there are the results of the poll. Awesome. So let's move towards our program today. Could I have the next slide, please, Andreas?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to do a brief overview of the speakers who will be on the call today. So first we have Andreas Karelis. He's the founder and executive director of RE-volve. We have Michael Ferrante, the CEO of Triso, laris. We have Leora Milgram Gardner. She's the Northern California director of California Interfaith Power and Light. We have our solar ambassador project lead from the University of Oregon, Ama Duru. And last but not least, we have Cass Rohrbach, who's the acting director of the Ready for 100 campaign at the Sierra Club. So we're going to hear from all these folks today, and then we will have some time at the end for questions. And just thanks so much for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andreas.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Liz. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Andreas Karelis, and I'm the founder and executive director of RE-volve. Welcome to the webinar. It's really great to see so many people taking the time to learn about how we can bring more solar to nonprofits. And before I dive into the overview about RE-volve and how we can build community through solar, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the incredibly difficult moment that we're going through right now in our country. And in light of the events over the past few weeks, and in the past week in particular, I know that we're all in a lot of pain right now and that our hearts are heavy. And we appreciate you joining us despite what's going on, despite the heartbreaking events surrounding us. And I also want to say that RE-volve stands in solidarity with calls for racial and social justice and equality in our country, and that our deepest sympathies go out to so many people who have been affected by the terrible events of recent times. And so to introduce the topic of the day, bringing solar energy to our communities, I want to start by highlighting the incredible role that solar energy plays, and that solar energy can play in our economic recovery and in bringing resilience and jobs back to our communities. So in this slide here, in this graph, what you'll see is that despite solar energy currently only producing 2% of the country's electricity, it actually accounts for 43% of the power sector's workforce. You know, what's particularly interesting to me is if you look at how many people are employed by the fossil fuel industry in generating electricity compared to solar energy. Solar energy has twice as many workers as the entire fossil fuel industry. So this, to me, just goes, and again, highlighting that solar is still only producing 2% of our country's electricity. So what does that look like in jobs numbers when when we ramp up the amount of solar energy production in our country. The other thing I'll mention about jobs is that over the last decade, we've seen that solar energy jobs are actually increasing at a faster rate than the rest of the economy. So on average, solar jobs are increasing 14 times the national average. And again, so to me, that means that this can be one of the best tools we have to jumpstart the economy and to create jobs, especially in communities that need them most. And the other thing that makes clean energy so critical is that I believe that clean energy can actually help heal the political divide in our country. So take a look at this slide here. 85% of registered voters support requiring utilities in their state to produce 100% of their electricity from clean renewable sources by 2050. So let's just take a step back here. We're going through such a politically divided moment in our country that I can't think of anything that 85% of Americans agree on. And to see that 85% of Americans agree that clean energy is the way forward, that we all want to see 100% renewable energy in our communities is absolutely incredible. So with that being said, where does RE-volve fit in? RE-volve is a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco, and our mission is to empower people to bring solar energy to nonprofits in their community. The way that we do that is by training people of all walks of life to identify nonprofits that could benefit from solar, and then provide them with solar financing options that are typically unavailable to them. This allows nonprofits to go solar with no upfront costs, save money right away, and demonstrate the benefits of clean energy to their community. I started RE-volve in 2011 because I felt frustrated by the lack of progress on climate change at the federal policy level. And I knew that as individuals working together in our communities, that we could actually start taking action to deploy clean energy right away without having to wait for policy. And I knew that we could do it in a way that could get everybody involved in the process, and in a way that brings the benefits to the most impacted communities, the most vulnerable and marginalized communities. Now, why nonprofits? Why do we focus on nonprofits particularly? Well, as many of you may know, there are 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States, many of whom face barriers to getting their solar energy projects financed. Now, why is that? There are three main reasons why nonprofits have a difficult time going solar. The first is that nonprofits can't claim federal tax credits that are available for solar energy. And for those of you that are in the industry know that this is one of the main drivers. Why can't they claim them? Because nonprofits don't pay taxes. So right now, the investment tax credit provides 26% of the cost of the system in the form of a tax credit for the builder and the owner of the project. So that's unavailable, as well as depreciation benefits, which could add a total of up to 30 to 40% of a solar system's cost. That's now unavailable to those nonprofits because they don't pay taxes. The second reason is because it's not easy to demonstrate the benefits. It's not easy to demonstrate the credit worthiness of nonprofits to investors. So if you're a residential homeowner and you would like to go solar, you can show your FICO score and show that you have good credit, and it's easy to get financing. There's not a similar mechanism to demonstrate credit for nonprofits. And so even though these nonprofits may be in very good financial standing, there's no easy mechanism to demonstrate that. In other words, and so it leaves investors feeling that nonprofits are higher risk, even though they might not be. The last piece is that, except for very large nonprofits, like a hospital or a university, the first two barriers are so big that most investors don't really want to deal with these small projects. They don't want to be going through all the hurdles that it requires to get a project built for a small school, homeless shelter, church, health clinic, etc. And so that's where we saw an opportunity. We saw two big challenges that we felt that we could solve at the same time. On the one hand, you have all these people who care about climate change and are looking for something to do, to take action that's going to have a meaningful impact in their community. And on the other hand, you have all these nonprofits that want to go solar and are left without solar financing options. So we've come up with what we think is an elegant model that solves both of these challenges at the same time. There are three pillars to our model: empower, invest, and educate. And I'm going to walk you through them briefly. The first step in our model is to empower. We empower people with training and tools necessary to be able to go in and help nonprofits in their community go solar. In the past, this has been primarily college students through our Solar Ambassador program. Although we have now broadened the Solar Ambassador program to not just include college students, but anybody can volunteer: high school students, working professionals, retirees, anybody who is passionate about clean energy and wants to see those benefits helping nonprofits in their community can join as a Solar Ambassador, and we will empower you and train you to go out and build these projects in your community. The second step is investment. We have developed a unique revolving fund model such that we provide all of the upfront capital for each solar project so that nonprofits can save money on their electric bills right away. And then we reinvest their solar payments over time into a revolving fund to help additional nonprofits go solar. And I'll explain a little bit more how that works in just a minute. The last step is educate. We're not just doing this just for this particular project, but we want to educate the community and we want to get people excited about solar energy. And so we work with other partners, we work in the community to host events, and we raise awareness about the benefits of solar with each project that we do. So with that being said, let me walk you through one of our projects so that you get a better sense of how this all works. So again, the first step is to empower, and this is focused on our volunteers. The first project I'll tell you about is an amazing nonprofit organization called Harbor House Ministries. Harbor House is a wonderful organization in Oakland, California, and what they do is they serve children and families primarily of low-income immigrant and refugee families. They provide after-school programs, summer camp. They also provide adult learning and workforce development. This amazing organization was brought to us, and we went out and trained two volunteers, our solar ambassadors. This is Jacqueline and Cecilia on the left. And we taught them how to go into the community and raise awareness about the benefits of solar, and at the same time be the liaison with Harbor House to walk them through this process so that they had a partner in this effort. You can see here, this is Cecilia going to Harbor House and in one of their classrooms and teaching the students about exactly how solar energy works. And so basically what the solar proposal process looks like for these nonprofits is that once our solar ambassadors have brought us a nonprofit that is interested in going solar, they will collect 12 months of their past electric bills. Then RE-volve will bring those electric bills and we will solicit proposals from local solar installers. This is where we are getting proposals from a whole slew of different installers, and we're working with installers to find the best project for this nonprofit. Once we've identified that local installer, then RE-volve puts together a 20-year solar lease or power purchase agreement specific for that nonprofit. At that point, once we've walked through the proposal with the nonprofit, they'll bring that back to their executive committee, perhaps their board of directors, and perhaps even their larger membership. And they will walk through the benefits of solar and they'll get everybody's input. Once they've decided that it's a good time to go solar for them, then we move into the next step, which is invest. And this is where we provide the financing where they might not otherwise be able to get it. In this case for Harbor House, we worked with a local solar installer, Sunwork Renewable Energy Projects. Sunwork is actually one of our close allies that we work with often here in the Bay Area. And they're actually a nonprofit as well. And what's amazing about their model is that they actually train volunteers and people who are looking to get experience in the solar industry as solar installers. They train them during the process. So Cecilia, our solar ambassador, actually got to get up on the roof here and get some on the roof job training. Once that system goes in place, this nonprofit who paid nothing upfront to go solar gets to start saving money right away on their electricity bill. So this 14 kilowatt system is actually going to save Harbor House $130,000 on their electric bills over the life of the system. So just to give you a bit of an overview of how the nonprofit benefits by going solar with RE-volve, again, it's zero upfront costs. The nonprofit doesn't have to do any fundraising. They don't have to put any money in. We will come and put the system on the roof for free. Once that system is turned on, they'll start paying us their monthly solar lease or power purchase agreement payment. And that payment is actually going to be 15% less than what their electric costs used to be for that same amount of electricity. During the course of the power purchase agreement or lease, which are typically 20 years, all the warranties, operations, and maintenance are covered by RE-volve. RE-volve is the ongoing maintainer of the system. Anything that breaks, we fix it. The nonprofit doesn't have to worry about getting on the roof and worrying about that. That's on us. The system performance is actually guaranteed for 25 years, even beyond the length of the PPA, because the panels themselves are warranted for 25 years from the manufacturers. And of course, during that process, we're offsetting over oftentimes hundreds of thousands of pounds of carbon dioxide, reducing our pollution that's causing climate change. And at the same time, demonstrating the benefits of solar to the community. And that brings me to the last point, which is educate. Our projects are really trying to create a larger change in the community, raising awareness and getting people excited about clean energy. For every project that we build, we have a ribbon cutting celebration where we will invite, of course, the community. In this case, at Harbor House, we have the families and the parents, the children from those local neighborhoods that are coming to see the benefits of solar. We also typically invite elected officials. We'll invite the media and the press to come and cover the story. And so all of this together is really helping to raise awareness. Now, we will also, at these ribbon cutting events and at our ongoing solar education events, we'll invite our local partners who work on solar policy to come and talk about how can community members get involved in solar policy advocacy at the local level. We will also typically invite the installer who built the system to come to those events and let the community know that, hey, guess what? If you want to go solar at home, we can help you do that, right? And so we connect the community members to the solar installer so that we can see more and more residential solar installations happen as a result of our project. And that brings me to my last point here on the education piece, which is that one of the things we have going for us in the clean energy transition is that solar energy is contagious. What do I mean by that? When you look at the country, you see that there are pockets of solar energy that pop up. And what study after study have shown is that when someone goes solar and their neighbor when someone goes solar, their neighbor and their neighbor are more and more likely to go solar, meaning there's a ripple effect. When someone goes solar, the next person and the next person are going to follow suit. And so our theory of change is that if we put up solar on a local nonprofit that interacts with the community, that's a pillar of the community that provides services and benefits to hundreds of families locally, then we're going to fast forward that solar energy contagious effect. So to date, our impact is that we have financed solar energy projects for 30 nonprofits in 13 states. We've financed projects on the West Coast, on the East Coast, Northeast, Midwest, and the South, totaling over 400 kilowatts. Collectively, these 30 nonprofits serve over 42,000 people with direct benefits. Often these are low-income communities of color, marginalized and vulnerable communities that directly benefit and that directly rely on the services of those nonprofits. those nonprofits now save $1.5 million on their electric bills over the life of their solar systems that they can put back into serving those members of the community. The revolving fund, meaning the payments from those projects, is now worth over $1 million in future payments that we will use to build at least 40 additional solar energy projects through our revolving solar seed fund. And of course, through the process, we have trained over 230 solar ambassadors at this point from over 20 universities. And again, as I mentioned, we're continuing to expand our university engagement, and we've also broadened it so that you don't have to be a college student anymore. Anybody can join to be a solar ambassador. I'll give you just a quick couple of snapshots of some of the projects and the incredible work that they do. So this is the Northern California Land Trust here in Berkeley, California. This is a multifamily affordable housing unit. You can see there in the middle of that picture on the left is Reginald. He's a longtime resident of Northern California Land Trust, and now his granddaughter, who he's holding there in the picture, gets to live with him, and they get to afford to live in Berkeley despite the rising costs of living. He's been there for over 20 years. And we're now able to save the tenants of this building over $60,000 on their electricity costs through this 11 kilowatt system that we built with Grid Alternatives. Over to South Carolina, our Coastal Carolina University solar ambassadors went out into their community and identified an amazing nonprofit, this VFW Post 10804 in Little River, South Carolina. And for those of you that aren't familiar with VFWs, the Veterans of Foreign Wars is an incredible national organization of veterans who have fought in combat abroad. And when they come back, they provide an incredible amount of support and services to each other. And so this VFW post is going to save $33,000 on their electric bills thanks to this 15 kilowatt system. And I'll make two other points about this project, which I think are so interesting. One, on the solar contagious front, the next year after this project went solar, our Coastal Carolina community solar ambassadors were looking for their next nonprofit, and the VFW in the town over wanted to go solar as well after they saw this post go solar. The second piece I'll mention is that at that time, our good friends and partners at Vote Solar were embroiled in a solar policy battle in the state of South Carolina around net metering policy. And so they wrote an op-ed highlighting this project and talking about how solar directly benefits the community members to showcase why it's important to secure solar energy policies for the future. And they were successful in that. And now South Carolina has much better policies as a result. Over to Wisconsin, where this beautiful monkey is being held up in its in this animal shelter specifically for primates called Primates Inc. It's a rescue center for primates who are coming out of, they call it putting into retirement. They're either coming out of Hollywood or oftentimes out of laboratories, and they have a home here where they can be taken care of. And this nonprofit is going to save $45,000 over the life of the system through this ground-mounted 14 kilowatt system. And last but not least, back to California here in East Oakland, Faith Baptist Church is an incredible organization that, in addition to their ministry of serving the community and having been a pillar for over 40 years, they provide a food giveaway program. And through that, they have distributed over 100 tons of food every single year that they give away to folks in East Oakland who don't have food security. And so because of this solar system, they're now going to save $50,000 on their electric bills so that they can put that back into serving those that are less fortunate. Really briefly, I'm going to dive into our Solar Seed Fund just to give you a bigger sense of how this works over time. But before I do, I'll say one thing. Many of you who are familiar with RE-volve think of us as a crowdfunding platform, which we have been for many years. We've recently pivoted so that we're no longer focused on crowdfunding, but in fact, we are actually partnering with Triso, laris, which I'll introduce in just a moment. And through this, we've established a tax equity partnership that allows us to take advantage of tax credits, and a whole lot more. So what you'll see here is that once our solar ambassadors identify the nonprofit that wants to go solar, and we've put together our proposal and the nonprofit has expressed interest, then Triso will actually invest the initial upfront cost of the capital to build the project and monetize the tax benefits. And that allows us, of course, to create better savings for the nonprofit through the power purchase agreement. In year 5, the ownership of the system transfers to RE-volve. And then RE-volve continues to own and operate the system, providing all the operations and maintenance for the remainder of the PPA. RE-volve continually reinvest the PPA revenues from one project into additional nonprofit solar projects on an ongoing basis, creating basically a snowball effect to fund more and more solar projects across the country. And again, just to highlight some of the benefits here of partnering with Triso, because of the tax benefits, we're able to offer greater savings to the nonprofits than we ever have. We're also able to build larger projects and more projects. We're able to deploy them even faster because there's immediate funding available. We have outlined a plan with Triso to deploy $10 million of solar projects for nonprofits over the next 3 years. And so that money is ready to go right now. So for those of you out there that are looking to go solar right away or have projects, if you're an installer and your projects are ready to go, give us a call because we've got funding ready to go and we're ready to deploy that. And of course, the additional benefit is that our solar ambassadors who used to spend so much time crowdfunding, now they have all that additional time that they can put into community engagement, which particularly means they can help other people go solar and they can support solar policy initiatives in their area. So with all that being said, I'm now going to introduce the CEO and founder of Triso and our good friend and partner, Michael Ferranti. Michael, thanks so much.
Well, thanks, Andreas, for the introduction and for organizing today's webinar. As Andreas said, my name is Michael Ferranti, and I'm the CEO of Triso. I want to start by also thanking all the attendees for taking time out of their busy days to listen to us and join us today for the call. Time sure is precious, so thank you. For those of you who don't know, I live on Long Island, and we've been in pause for a couple of months now. So I also have to thank my wife for this wonderful haircut that she's given me. I'll say that she didn't have a lot to work with, but she did an awesome job. I'm excited to be on the call today. I think that we're going to demonstrate that we are extremely well poised to build many solar projects together with the help of many folks on this call today. But first, I'm going to start with just a bit of background about myself. I spent just about the first 30 years of my career in the healthcare services sector, the last 22 of which I was the chief of operations for a New York City-based private company. And I left that company at the end of 2017. It was very hard for me to leave that company. I had developed incredible relationships with many, many people for many years that I worked with. I was really fortunate to be able to work with a great group of people, and it hurt to leave them, and I miss them to this day. But I left because I was just extremely disappointed with where this country was in transitioning to a clean energy. And I wanted to explore ways that in my own way, I might be able to help make some small difference in that regard. I just think our country is and was entitled to do better in the transition, so I figured I might see what I could do to help. I started my journey by kind of looking to find early stage companies that I could invest in, both in the form of capital, as well as offering my operational experience that I've learned over 30 years. And I'm fortunate to say that I did find 3 awesome companies, early stage companies to work with. I work with them in a variety of ways. I'm a board member on one, a board advisor on another, executive in residence on another firm, and an executive member on another firm. And I'm happy to say that Galehead, Solstice, and Sunwealth are all growing and expanding in this company and continuing to affect the climate change in very positive ways that we need to as a country. I also made my first investment into an impact investment firm, Sustain VC, and I serve on their advisory council as well. During that same period of time, I started my own company, Triso. Its initial goal was to help these organizations with their own growth programs and projects as well. And that still remains a core component of Triso's goals. And then in 2018, I was fortunate enough to meet this guy named Andreas, and we spent some time together. And he explained to me what RE-volve was doing and what RE-volve was about. And my wife and I decided to begin our relationship with him by supporting him from a philanthropic standpoint. And you know how all these things go. One thing leads to another, and we're having dinner one night, and I'm explaining to my children what we're doing. And it turns out that two of my boys were students at Duke University, and they became solar ambassadors. They were trained by the RE-volve team. They worked in the community to try to source solar projects, and it was a very positive experience for them. So you'll hear later on in the presentation from an actual solar ambassador, but I can tell you from my boys' experience, it was a very rewarding one. I continued these conversations with Andreas about how we could, what could we do together to really jumpstart the RE-volve, RE-volve's mission, and how can we significantly accelerate the deployment of solar onto the roofs of nonprofits. And we came to the conclusion that in the short term, there are two main barriers for RE-volve's significant expansion. And one was the fact that, as Andreas mentioned before, their net cost of deploying a system was higher than it needed to be. As one nonprofit putting a system on the roof of another nonprofit, they could not take advantage of any of the tax benefits associated with that project, which results in a higher net cost of building and deploying that system. And second was, look, crowdfunding is hard. It's very hard to go into any community and crowdfund $30, $40, $50, $60,000 for a single system to go on the roof of a nonprofit. And in thinking through this, we came up with this partnership model where together, Triso, laris, and RE-volve is poised to build many, many systems together. From Triso, laris's standpoint, for this portion of the business, we're looking to run this at break-even returns. We're not looking to make profit here. We're looking to translate all of the potential economics of this back into the community. So that's very exciting. And currently, as Andreas said, we have arranged millions of dollars in funding that are ready today to be deployed into these systems. And despite the partnership being very young, I will say we have 2 live projects. One went live this week, another exciting milestone. We have 2 that are in active installation right now, and we have 2 more that are about to begin installation as well. And then in addition to that, we have a growing and robust pipeline where we're in active discussions with PPA negotiations right now and working with different EPCs in different cities to build those same projects. So I really believe this is just the beginning of an incredible relationship that we're going to have and really do our best to affect climate change. So I just have a few closing comments to the different constituents on the call. I would say to any foundation on the call, I strongly encourage you either support or continue to support RE-volve. The fact of the matter is the more resources they have available to them, the more projects they can source, the more projects they can manage, and the benefits will accrue to all the constituents. So the climate benefits are real from every single project. The job creation is real from every single project. The financial benefits that accrue to the nonprofit are real, and the educational opportunities that are demonstrated at the ribbon-cutting ceremonies are very real. RE-volve has a proven track record of execution in this space. To any installer on the call, I really encourage you to reach out and connect with RE-volve. There are those millions of dollars that are available for potential funding of any projects that you have in the queue on the roofs of nonprofits. And even if you don't have any, I encourage you to make that connection with RE-volve, because likely in the not too distant future, we will have projects in your community. And if you guys have that relationship, you can clearly bid on building out that project. So I think that's a win-win there. For any nonprofit on the call, I really encourage you to go on to the website, fill out the intake form. I put this into the world's category of why not? Anytime someone else is willing to do all the work and you get to reap financial benefits, that sounds like a home run to me. So I encourage you to do so. And to all the solar ambassadors on the call, just thank you for what you're doing. Hopefully you've been having a very enjoyable experience with it. And I truly believe this partnership will unlock a lot of funds to make these projects get built at a much more rapid pace. So thanks again, everyone, for participating today. I probably ran a bit over on my time, but I was a little excited to talk about this partnership. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Andreas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, so much for the kind words and obviously for this incredible partnership that we've built out together. And so now another incredible partner of RE-volve's that we've worked with for many years is Interfaith Power and Light. So for many of you who know Interfaith Power and Light, they are one of the leading organizations bringing communities of faith into the climate change effort, and I will pass it over to Lior now to give us a few words. Thank you so much, Lior.
Hi, good morning. Well, here in San Francisco, it is still morning. So good morning to the West Coasters and good afternoon to everybody else. It is an honor to be with you all as you're thinking and exploring and celebrating going solar. So we've been around for 20 years now as a faith-based response to climate change. And at the very beginning, we pursued solar and helped houses of worship get solar on their roofs to model what climate action could look like. Back then, solar was expensive, it was complicated, and we still had people lining up to do what was good for the earth and for their community. Fast forward 20 years, and now everything has shifted. We have a partner like RE-volve that offers access and to the process, but also making it financially feasible for just about everybody to put solar on their rooftops. And it is, we have worked in California and across the entire country doing this. Maybe next slide. Great. So Interfaith Power and Light is a national organization with state affiliates across the country. There are about 40 of them, including Hawaii and Alaska. And I myself am here in California working locally with California houses of worship, but there are counterparts like me in nearly every single state that work with houses of worship that are committed to climate action. And in that process, we're also interested in taking on visible efforts like solar. Is with RE-volve and houses of worship, connect the dots and make the connection. We do hands-on engagement to offer resources to pastors, to clergy, on the communication front and the celebration. I am very, very honored that Pastor John Current is on the call. He is one of the pastors, and his church is one of the initiatives that is currently in the final stages of a solar installation. And we've been working together for over a year to make this happen. And fast forward, here we are, the plugs are about to be connected, the energy is about to flow. And I saw a really important question about doing all of this in the time of COVID, when very few people are accessing buildings, let alone houses of worship. And even as states open up, that we know that it is going to be a long time before we're in these buildings. And so there was a question kind of about doing this now, and also about the ribbon cutting celebrations, about how to do this. And just a small note there is right now, indeed, most of us are home and will be home for some time. And the hope that planning for solar, like taking these first steps, congratulations for being here, thinking about the future, knowing that one day our buildings will be occupied again and we will have people gathering, we will be using electricity again in all of our buildings. Planning for and installing and taking action on the climate and for our communities is a sign of hope and engagement that one day we will be returning. And so I support you there. If you are a member of a faith community, we are a resource to you, and I'm happy to connect you with the Interfaith Power and Light in your state. If you're in California, you're looking at me. I am the one who can walk through this with you, and it is both my honor and pleasure. And for those who are on their way to an installation or have solar and to celebrate it now, we will work through that challenge as well, because these are the things that we do need to celebrate and pull ourselves together, even if not in person, and it'll trickle down. And it is a commitment, not just for the year ahead when we will be back together, but also getting more renewable energy into our grid means that we believe in a future for ourselves, for our people, for our kids, and for a climate, right? These initiatives will be going on for 20 plus years. So planning now, taking action now is an incredible step. So thank you for being here. And with that, back to Andreas.
Okay, thank you so much, Lior. Now we're really excited to have one of our solar ambassadors from the University of Oregon. He was the project lead. He was a solar ambassador for many years. Amaduru, thank you, Ama, for joining us. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. Before I start, I just want to preface this by saying, I think it's an important topic to discuss today, but there are other important topics going on right now, and I think that finance is an important tool for social change, and that solar does this well, but a reminder to get yourself educated in other aspects of the world, and that this is just one part of that. But back to my solar ambassador experience, I just want to say hello again. I'm Alma from the University of Oregon. I'm graduating this spring with a degree in finance with minors in sustainability and computer science. So I just want to talk about my experience as solar ambassador with RE-volve for the past 2 years and how it's helped me develop professionally, but also personally. So background with this, I'd say my freshman year after that, I kind of realized I had a lot of free time. I didn't really know how to utilize my time well. And so I kind of like, after my sophomore year, I kind of wanted to see what clubs would fit my, personal goals and the things I valued. And so I met this club called Net Impact, which is a sustainability club on campus that focuses on sustainability within the aspect of business. And so one of the first experiences we had was we went on a site visit to RE-volve actually in that January, met with Andreas and the team there and just learned about how they incorporate solar with nonprofits. And so after learning about this program, I realized that this is the kind of project I've always wanted to get involved with. It's, I think, always a major issue with college students is that they understand the severity of climate change, and that's an ongoing issue, but they don't really know how to solve it at an individual level and how they can contribute to solutions. And so I think this kind of project was one of the first experiences where I had an opportunity to actually directly affect the solution. And so by helping a nonprofit, I think you're creating a direct and tangible piece of the solution. So rather than just parading, common sentiments, which is important, you're actually coming up with a desired action that can actually help your community locally. And so my team kind of applied for the fellowship that fall. And so we had 4 solar ambassadors at the moment. And we had, once we were accepted in the program, we had to devise up roles and stuff. So we had 2 of us, working on coordinator roles, so reaching out to nonprofits directly, others working on social media aspects of it, and just kind of working together weekly, just meeting as a team and seeing where we are in the process. And so we also, with being solar ambassadors, had the opportunity to, host events on campus, ability to rent rooms, recruit other members, things of that nature. So being involved with the program helped me also on my role on campus as a personal level. So eventually, last fall, we got introduced to Independent Environments. So they're a nonprofit who help people with disabilities in the community get housing, other needs they may need in the community. And so they've always been interested in going solar, but they ran into issues as most nonprofits do with the whole financing side of it. So they couldn't really afford to go solar because of the upfront cost of it. And so this program would help them, bypass the upfront cost and be able to go solar as a whole. So I was kind of excited to help them with this because they've always wanted to go solar, but they've never had the opportunity to do that themselves. And so that February, or this last February 2020, we actually had a ribbon cutting event. And so that was probably one of the most, I'd say, proudest moments I've had in my professional career, just because seeing everyone there, like city officials, community members, students, faculty, seeing everyone there just talking about solar was pretty exciting, because this is something that doesn't really happen often in the community, and people are always excited to be participating and learning about what you've done in the program. So sharing my past 2 years with everyone there was really exciting for me. And then we had a story written in the city local newspaper and then also our college newspaper, so everyone would learn about it that didn't get to attend the ribbon cutting event necessarily. So this is definitely one of those proudest moments I've had in my college career, I'd say, for sure. And just overall, I'd say anyone who considers being a solar ambassador, this is one of the most proudest moments I've had in my career in my college years. It was one of the goals I had for my freshman year, was to be able to have a direct solution to climate change and help contribute my way, even though it might be a small role, just have my personal individual level be satisfactory, I believe. And so this is one of my goals I had and I completed. Additionally, it's something I could speak on in interviews. So I think a lot of students in their first couple of years kind of feel like they've only had their coursework to share and they don't have much personal experience, talk about in interviews. And so being involved with RE-volve was one of those direct things I could talk about. And you can speak freely about things you're really passionate about in interviews. So like if you're really passionate about, going solar, you can just talk about that naturally and it comes off, authentically, rather than just parading, your coursework you may be doing here and there, or just things that you're interested in, because that's not really direct thing and tangible thing you can present to interviewers. So I think just having that under my belt was really beneficial for me as well, and it's helped me with interviews, internships, and jobs as well. So that's kind of my time with RE-volve, and I just want to open up to Q&A before we run out of time here. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amma, for your incredible service as an ambassador over multiple years, and for sharing your experience with us. Next, I want to introduce one of our board members and a pioneer in the clean energy and climate change movement. Cash Rohrback, over to you.
Awesome. I like being called a pioneer, although I think there are many, many who have come before me. I also just wanted to echo Amma's call for acknowledging finance as a tool for many forms of justice for seeking, and share with you, as a staff member of the Sierra Club, this weekend the Sierra Club did take a stance in solidarity with the Black Visions Collective in Minneapolis to call for defunding the police. a radical call. I just encourage you all to take some time to understand that and to consider if that's a stance you want to support as well. 100% clean energy was a radical call 5 years ago. And we have seen a major groundswell of change. And I think this is a moment where that could start for justice for Black people in this country. And I just wanted to take a moment to say that. I'll bridge here. Is there a slide with the pictures of the?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I am really excited to share that we have been working over the last 5 years to put forward a call for a transition to 100% clean energy. Over the last 4 years, over 165 communities have made a commitment to 100% clean energy. And now 7 states and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico have all adopted legislation committing to a transition to 100% clean energy. What that means is that over 100 million people now live in a place where our elected leaders have made commitments to transition to 100% clean energy. That's an incredible statement of support for this vision. And I believe RE-volve is one of the few places that we are able to really put that vision into practice and to put it in practice in an intersectional way. I think I'm really excited to be part of the work of RE-volve and to help bring solar into our communities and to support organizations that are often struggling to pay utility bills. Some of you all might be wondering, like, wow, how is it that this is possible? How have I not heard of this? Why isn't this happening everywhere? I do want to just acknowledge that this has been 10 years of persistence, of dedication, and of creativity by Andreas and by the folks he has brought around him to come up with a solution for how do we make solar affordable for nonprofits and for the community organizations that many of us support. This is not something that just was an easy solution to find. And it's been incredible to see the crowdfunding that has happened by the solar ambassadors over the last 9 years now. And I'm so grateful for Michael Ferrante's leadership and partnership so that we actually will now be able to scale this and focus our outreach efforts on education and more contagions around this niche spread more throughout our communities. Things I just want to emphasize that I see as like major benefits that have been said here. These projects mean immediate savings for the organizations that they serve. Those are dollars that can be spent directly into direct service for these organizations. These projects bring visibility to the community, which is something we definitely need to continue to build and secure belief that this transition is possible. And as you may have heard Andreas say, these projects support local jobs, local installers, local solar companies, and that's a really innovative part of this model as well. I'm really proud to be on the board of RE-volve, and I'm really proud to be, part of this movement broadly. I just wanted to share with you, we just did some recent polling around 100% clean energy and what are some of the barriers here. And people continue to not understand that cost is actually competitive. And in many cases, you see many cost savings from fossil fuel development instead of over fossil fuel development if you invest in clean energy. People don't believe that yet. While that's been true in the energy market for going on 5 years now, there isn't total belief that that's actually real. And these projects can help bring that visibility of that truth to the ground, to our communities, and they can start dialogue and help moving folks towards that. And people need to see these projects in order to believe that it's possible. So I do encourage you all to consider volunteering in whatever capacity you have, whether it is bringing more financial support to RE-volve to help that team grow, whether it is volunteering to be a solar ambassador, or it's just being a part of the project itself as it and helping to spread the good word. So thank you, Andreas, for asking me to be part of this, and I'm just really impressed with what you've the nut that you've cracked to help make this model possible, and I can't wait to help make it scale now.
Thank you, Cass, so much for joining. And I'll just point back that slide that I opened the presentation with, saying that 85% of Americans want to see 100% clean energy in their community. That's largely possible because of Cass and her team at Ready for 100 at the Sierra Club, because they've taken this concept of 100% clean energy that, like she said a few years ago, was thought of as impossible, and now it's become so popular. It's built so much momentum, as we see here, 100 million people. I believe is it one out of 3 people now in the United States live in a city or state or county that is committed to 100% clean energy. And Cass, you and your team have done such a phenomenal job making that the new standard in the country. So thank you for that. Okay, great. And we're going to open it up for Q&A in just a moment. Before I do, I just want to give you all a quick kind of breakdown of how you can get involved. So first of all, if you are a solar installer on the call, we would invite you to get in touch with us. Let's partner on projects. You might have nonprofits that you know of that were interested in going solar, but they had never had the financing options available. Now they can, so please do get in touch. And again, you can reach out through us, revolve.org. There's an intake form there that you can fill out, or you can email us at info@revolve.org, and we will get back to you. The second is nonprofits. If you're a nonprofit on the call and you are interested in going solar, please do reach out to us. We would love to talk with you and explore your options with you. Lastly, volunteers. Are you somebody who cares about climate change and cares about clean energy, and you're sitting at home and you're wondering how you can really kind of take some action and have some big impact? Go to our website. We actually just launched a brand new Solar Ambassador portal that has all the tutorials and all the information you need right there. It's really cool. For those of you that have seen our old Solar Ambassador webpage, I do recommend you go check out the new one. It's really, really cool. And then lastly, for anybody on the call, we encourage you to join our mailing list, to follow us on social media, and of course, if you're able to support us, to become a monthly donor. With that, I just want to introduce you briefly to one of our other team members, Mark Matos. He's our senior solar account manager. And for those of you that are interested in going solar, Mark is going to be your go-to guy. So Mark, do you want to say hello? Oh, Mark, you're muted.
Oh, my apologies. So I just want to thank everybody for joining the call. And I see a lot of familiar names of people that I've worked with and spoken to already. Any questions that we don't get around to answering, I will be sure, we should have all your email addresses, so I'll be sure to respond to those and get back to you as quickly as possible. But thanks, everybody, and I look forward to speaking with you all.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. And thanks to all of our speakers today. It was really, really great to hear from y'all. So we're going to turn to a few questions. And again, if we don't have time to answer your question, please feel free to reach out to Andreas or myself or Mark or any of the speakers here. We'll be circulating their contact info as well as the recording of the presentation and the deck. So you should have all of that info after we're done. There are a lot of great questions coming through the chat. The first question is for Andreas. At the end of the 20-year PPA, does the nonprofit own the system? And is there any cost associated with transferring ownership of the solar system to the nonprofit?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. In the past, when we had our solar lease model, and for certain areas where we have a solar lease model, it is written in that at the end of the lease, we transfer ownership directly to the nonprofit. Now, with the power purchase agreement, because of the way that the IRS rules are written, we cannot write into the agreement that the ownership will directly transfer, but that is very much our intention. So as it's written, the solar project will Well, first of all, the nonprofit does have the option to extend their PPA if they wanted to at the end of the PPA, at the end of the 20 years. But if not, we will, basically there's a fair market value associated with the project at that point. Which, you know, for those of you listening, 20 years from now, my guess is your solar system will be worth about $1, and that's maybe what it would cost. So while we can't put that down in writing because who knows where it's going to be, the basic idea is that yes, at the end of that system, we will transfer the ownership to the nonprofit at very low cost, basically a nominal fee that's fair market value. So the system is intended to go to the nonprofit so that they can get free electricity from that solar system from the end of the PPA onward.
Thanks, Andreas. This next question is for Andreas and possibly Michael as well. Is the 15% rate reduction when installing the solar system guaranteed? And how does this work in states like Pennsylvania, for example, with low energy costs? Can the model work there?
Yeah, great question. So we aim 15% is a goal of ours. Basically, when we look at a nonprofit's electricity bill and then we say, okay, this is what you pay on average, cost per kilowatt hour, we're going to try to set our PPA rate at least 15% less than what you're currently paying. Although that is, to your point, Liz, that's not always 100% possible. So we do install solar in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, South Carolina, Wisconsin, where the cost of electricity is very low. And so when that's the case, at very least, we're never going to, the solar system will be at cost or less. Hopefully it's 15%. If it's not 15%, maybe it's 10% or maybe it's 5%. But our goal is 15% or more. In some cases, in California, for example, we can offer even more than 15%. So it is a range, but that is our goal.
Awesome. Thanks, Andreas. This next question is for Amma. What does the training look like for the Student Solar Ambassador program?
Yeah, good question. So I guess where it starts off is so you have the fall or the summer before you actually go in the program, you have this, we have this series of webinars in SF, or I guess would be online now, but we met with them in SF with a bunch of solar ambassadors from across the country. And they kind of teach us through how the whole process works from like the ground to the ribbon cutting event. So you learn about how solar works, you know, from like scientifically and like how it's engineered all the way up to, you know, how to schedule a ribbon cutting event. So from there to there, we learn how to like, you know, pitch nonprofits, just things of that nature. So I think just helping them from the start helps us. And then also we meet with them every other week. So we have bi-weekly webinars throughout the semesters. So from fall to spring, whenever people get out of school, we just have weekly check-ins with RE-volve and see where we're at. But also check in with other solar ambassadors to see what they have that's successful. So for example, like one other solar ambassador would have the ribbon cutting events before us, we kind of take tips from them about what they had that was successful, what maybe didn't work for them, and apply that to our future ribbon cutting events. So kind of learning from everyone is kind of how we work about it. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Amma. I think we have time for one more question, and I've seen a few questions about this. This is for Andreas. Are mutual benefit corporations eligible, like HOAs?
Yeah, so HOAs are tough. We've actually explored that before. What I will say is at the moment, we have not done any HOAs, meaning like a condo association. We are at the moment focused on nonprofits that are 501c3 charities that serve a direct benefit to the community. So not to say that we will never kind of explore that further. And if you do have HOAs and you're looking to explore that, please do get in touch with us. But at the moment, our focus is 501c3 nonprofit charitable organizations.
Great. I think we actually have time for one more question. This one seems like kind of a softball. So this is for Andreas. How do you determine whether a nonprofit is viable and eligible to become a RE-volve project?
Oh, well, that's a fantastic question. And actually, I have a slide just in case that question came up. So what you'll see here is that, yeah, basically, there are a few practical elements that we look for when we're evaluating a project. One is, do they own their building? So you don't have to own your building. You can have a long-term lease in your building, but it is preferred if you own your building and are committed to being there for the long term. We do also want you to have been in that building for at least a year so that we can see what your electricity use is over the 12 months. certainly we want to see that there's a roof in good condition. Ideally, that means your roof is less than 10 years old. Or if you're on the other end where you have a very old roof, maybe you've got a 25-year-old roof and you're looking to replace it soon, that could be another time to come speak with us and we can install solar at the same time that you're putting on the new roof. And also, obviously, we hope that your roof isn't shaded by trees or buildings in the surrounding area. So again, I wouldn't worry about these things too much. If you have a nonprofit and you're interested in going solar, get in touch with us and we'll help you evaluate these questions together to give you the best answer.
Great, thanks, Andreas. And with that, we're at time. So I want to thank all the panelists again, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Again, if we didn't get to your questions today, please feel free to reach out to Andreas or myself via email. I'm happy to take any questions. Happy to chat with anyone who wants more information. So thanks everyone so much for attending today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andreas. I hope it
Let's end.